Well, indeed, it was a sweet symphony of the seas for Hong Kong-listed frozen seafood supplier Pacific Andes, the company reporting a nearly 40% jump in fiscal year 09 earnings to more than $66 million equivalent. Joining us on the show today is Ju Xiang, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Pacific Andes, which just announced the numbers. And, of course, Dr. Shane Oliver rejoins us, and he's listening in from Sydney and may have a comment, question, query, thing or two. Ju Xiang, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I thought that people were pulling back and going really cheap in the way they live, and here you come through with 11-12% jump in revenues and a 40% jump in profits. How do you do it?
Well, we have a very good business model and financial structure. During this financial crisis, people still have to eat, so that we have a global growing demand in the staple food, and also that there is a growing demand of health-conscious consumer turning into frozen seafood products. Mm-hmm. The products range that we are selling is actually lower price range, so actually meet the consumer. We can meet this crisis quite well, weather this crisis quite well. Yeah.
So we're talking about when I go to a supermarket and the vacuum-packed, say mackerel or sole or things of that nature. We're not talking about the ocean trout imported from the Loch Ness in Scotland or the Chilean sea bass or things of that nature. We're talking about the real basic foodstuffs. Hence, your company is so identified as a frozen seafood supplier, correct?
Yes, exactly. We have been targeting and focusing on underutilized fish species. Underutilized fish species products such as Alaskan pollock, Pacific cod, and we're going into Peruvian anchovy, going to South Pacific and Chilean jack mackerel. All these are abundant resources, and has been our strategy in capturing those big resources and utilize them for human consumption, and that helped us. Over the last 15 years, we have a continuous growth in profit.
Now, so you've been expanding your offerings, actually, like the anchovy kind of catch. What are these? Are these? I'm assuming that none of your products are farmed. Are these all wild catch in international waters, or what's your model?
We trying to capture as much fishing quota as possible. We believe the ocean resources is pretty much limited. For these limited resources, we're trying to go into different country, different area, and trying to get government's quota. And with those quota, we will be able to continue to have a stable revenue. But at the same time, the target is not going to those expensive species, but rather underutilized, most abundant species in the world. That provide us a sustainable growth and sustainable business structure.
Okay, I want you, Ju Xiang, I want you to say hi to Shane Oliver, my good friend in Sydney. As you may know, the Australians are very picky about their agro-resources and their marine biology. You've been listening in. Does this sound like a sustainable model to you? Shane, they're talking about abundant things. They're not talking about fishing the waters of the world devoid of O-Toro bluefin tuna like the Japanese seem to be doing very well by themselves.
Yeah. I mean, is that a concern going forward, Ju Xiang, that you might get into a situation where governments get more and more limiting in terms of the access you get to their fishing waters, and as the global fisheries sort of start to diminish, then that might cut into your business model going forward?
Those fish species that we are targeting have a few characteristics. Number one, they are all underutilized. Basically, like Peruvian anchovy, the largest fish resources in the world, is basically being utilized for fish meal today, for animal feedstuff. And we are trying to turn those for human consumption. Like Chilean jack mackerel, those are the species that mostly for fish meal in Chile. And we're trying to turn that for human consumption. We have successfully turned Alaskan pollock into for human consumption. So most abundant species in the world that has not been fully utilized, and we turn that for revenue. So it is for that reason we can always provide lowest price to the consumer and stable prices.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your expansion plans. I understand you're planning to buy a bigger fleet of trawlers, another 30 or 40 ocean trawlers. Is that going to cost you a lot of money? Are you going to have to do any cash raisings, any top-ups, or anything like that? And where are they going to be deployed? Just give us sort of a basic idea.
We have a specific strategy that this year we'll be going into South Pacific in a bigger way, in the international waters, South Pacific Ocean. We are deploying about 10 super trawlers, and the total investment this year is about 100 million, and we have already sufficient money ready for this $100 million, $60 million from the bank, and then $40 million from the public, from the fund that we raised recently.
Have you've seen a marked increase in interest because. I don't know if you've been shopping lately, but if you want to get a really nice cut of like USDA Super Prime or something, it's going to cost you $60 a pound. I mean, it's a really rare treat now. It's not, every weekday kind of entertaining kind of a menu. Do you have an inverse relationship to bad economies? I mean, when recession hits, do you find that you get more orders and more calls and more inquiries?
When the economy is bad, consumers have to eat, they go down lower, they trade down. So we emit us because we are the lowest price. But when the economy go back up again, we are still having a big growth in those developing countries like China, Russia, and South America, and all over the world. They still want to eat better food, so they go into seafood for health reasons and for various reasons. Okay.
You say you're at the lower end, but I can still make a very nice casserole, or I can make some nice beer-battered cod and chips or something like that, right? Yes. If I feel like that for comfort food. I just want to make sure it's not so low that only my cats would eat it.
If you go into any fish and chip shop, McDonald's, or you're going into all the fish fingers on all the major brands, they basically selling the fillet that we supply to them.
Yeah. It's good to see you, okay?
Thank you.